Hello again, and continuing the series on World War II special units, we come to an area which has fascinated me ever since I first heard about it. I remember I was down at Bisley shooting for a weekend, and we were all having a brew after the range day, all sitting around talking about different things. And one chap who was a noted firearms dealer from the London and the South area mentioned he'd acquired some wartime weapons from a bunker that was part of the British resistance. And I picked up, I'd never heard of this, and he explained that every so often these bunkers would be discovered by farmers or people doing construction work and so on, and they were full of arms and explosives. And I dug into it and I found out that broadly speaking it was true. And then of course later on more has been revealed about the British resistance and what it was. In fact, when I was at school, there were rumours that there was a bunker full of weapons in Kirby, near part of Liverpool, and that turned out to be true, but it was nothing to do with the resistance. It was a Royal Ordnance Factory. They had these bunkers that were highly secure and fascinated people, and they had been used for the storage and manufacture of weapons. Anyway, so the British resistance movement was first really talked about in a book called The Last Ditch, and then there's been another couple of books, but this one I think is the one that I enjoyed and I got the most out of, with Britain in Mortal Danger, Britain's Most Secret Army of World War II, edited by John Warwicker, with a foreword by Lord Ironside, who was in charge of the Home Army at the beginning of World War II. So basically we've mentioned before that the British resistance, the auxiliary units, were set up as an emergency measure by MIR under Colin Gubbins. And what happened, and the reason that these bunkers are being discovered, was that it was done on a cellular system. It was highly secret. Guys were recruited, and they weren't in much communication with anyone else. Then after the threat of invasion went, a lot of these chaps were called up into the regular forces and into special forces as well, and went off and fought. And some of them didn't survive, but the ones who survived, when they came back, they had no one to report to. There was no structure, it didn't exist. So they had no one to tell about these bunkers, and quite a few of them remained hidden. So that's the origin of that. Anyway, the book, it goes into lots of really interesting sections, and one particular interest to us is a chapter called Thuggery. The instructor who trained taught at the centre where the Aux unit personnel went, Coles Hill, Major Geoffrey Bates, preferred the word thuggery for the dirty tricks he taught. Other professionals had different lexicon: close quarters combat, the art of silent killing, and unconventional warfare training, for example. Dan Fairbairn called it gutter fighting. He had pages of notes for his Coles Hill lectures. The author says the subject is usually avoided by auxiliaries themselves. Ask about explosives and their elderly faces are rejuvenated. Goes on, but ask about thuggery and the response is likely to be a disarming smile and change the subject. The dangers of limb dislocation and death by stabbing or strangulation have never been forgotten, and auxiliaries are well aware that detailed information on killing the enemy hand to hand can literally be lethal even in peacetime. Goes on to talk about William Fairbairn. Foul methods help you to kill quickly, he recommended. This put him in much the same category as Colin Gubbins, informers should be killed quickly, who was his commanding officer when he was in SOE. Now, there's a charming chapter, or section rather, of this chapter by, he was then a Lieutenant, Ronald Hall, who was known as Henry Hall, who trained at Loch Aelort, and he talks about meeting Fairbairn and Sykes in the big house at Loch Aelort. So we gathered at the foot of a large staircase in the house, and two old gentlemen in their late 50s, dressed in battle dress with the rank of captain and wearing glasses, appeared at the top of the stairs. They proceeded to throw themselves down the stairs together, landing in a battle crouch at the bottom with a handgun in one hand and the Fairbairn Sykes knife in the other, which I later learned they carried in their modified trouser pockets. From that time we were under fire most of the time. We went through and rarely stopped running. Major Hall goes on to talk about all the techniques they taught, garroting, neck breaks, ear trapping, gouging, lifting the gates, which was dislocation of the rib cage, dislocation of the jaw, rib lifting, the grapevine, and many other techniques. Then another section is on the special duties section, or the special duties branch, which recently there's been 2 books just on this alone. And the special duties, it said, because the main parts of the auxiliary unit were what they called observers, and they were in these bunkers and they watched the enemy and gathered intelligence. The men and women of the SDS operated as civilian spies, observers, coast watchers or agents, and not, after a false start, as armed guerrillas. Although created as a saboteur force to a format not dissimilar from the operational patrols, it was not in the event how they would go to the secret war, which was to collect and communicate intelligence. Sorry, I got that the wrong way around. The main bulk of the AUX units were saboteurs. They were to disrupt the enemy. The SD were the intelligence collectors. So the book has a lot of detail, a lot of first hand, and it really throws a light on a lot of stuff which earlier books, such as The Last Ditch, really didn't have access to the same amount of information. It was so secret, the guys were secretive, and you know, did respect the official secrecy. So fascinating subject, fascinating area of research, and a really interesting part of our wartime history, and the book is really good.